Hello everyone, it's Brandon here again for another video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about shamanism, the link between shamanism and psychotic mental health disorders, and how shamanism is no longer practiced in most cultures. And I'm going to be talking about some things that would work better if we could make some systemic changes to our cultures and society to help these people. But let's first start off. So, what is a shaman? A shaman is a person who historically has been seen to have a connection with the spiritual world. And in some sense, that is their job. That is their profession, is that they follow their calling as a shaman to work to deepen their connection with spirit, the spiritual world, whatever you want to call it. So, shamanism has existed over many different cultures for thousands of years. And today, in modern day society, we do not have something like shamanism anymore. Previously, if you were to exhibit symptoms like someone today who has a psychotic mental health disorder, a psychotic break, so to say, if you had those same symptoms and acted the same way in a culture that recognized shamanism, you would be recognized as a candidate to become a shaman yourself. And typically, let's say if there was already a shaman in the village, you would be taken to them and they would teach you the ropes and the tricks of the trade. And this is key. Also, a thing to keep in mind too is the shaman, their main focus was deepening their connection to the spiritual world. And in doing this, they didn't really have time or the ability really to partake in normal economic type activities such as hunting or fishing or skinning animals and all of the normal stuff you would think of from a culture a couple thousand years ago, maybe in South America or something. These people, these shamans, were only meant to do one thing. And that's an important thing too, because we find that many people today are having these same symptoms and acting in the same way, having these psychotic breaks. These people lose their ability to function in the normal world. But many of the people who exhibit these symptoms, they're not all the same. But there is definitely a large portion of people with psychotic mental health disorders who fall into this category, where they begin having either deeply religious or spiritual thoughts, feelings. Many people at first think that they are Jesus and the second coming or something, or whatever religious figure is at the peak in their culture. You know, if you were born in India, you might think that you're Krishna, again, coming. But the thing is, if people today, if our current culture were to act like those previous cultures and take these people in and say, you have a gift, you have a connection to something that most people do not, and we want to help make it possible for you to deepen this connection. We want to provide economic support. We want to make sure that you have enough food, make sure that you have everything you need to follow your purpose on this planet so that you can help us by bringing spiritual truths down to us. And because and when I say our culture, I'm mainly talking about westernized cultures, typically under the reign of Christianity, like the United States or many countries in Europe, stuff like that. I believe that's where many of my viewers come from. But if in these cultures we were to support these people, we would get a lot back from it. But the thing is, these cultures today don't realize the value in a connection to the spiritual world, because we are starting to become so secularized that we no longer believe that any of it's real. In the United States, if you're an intelligent person, college educated, or something similar to that, most of the people that you're going to be around are going to be blind skeptics. They're just going to not believe in anything that doesn't have concrete evidence already fleshed out in front of them. And the concrete evidence only works when they approve it. You know, it can't be the fact that the Enlightenment experience has been understood and discussed for over 5,000 years, and it's transcended many different cultures, many cultures that wouldn't have had communication with each other, all having similar things happen. You know, that's not enough evidence. Or having millions of churches all around the world built that typically churches aren't cheap buildings. They're rather large and often have expensive kind of adornments, not really adornments, but architecture. They don't see that as evidence either. So a little tangent there, but we have to understand most modern cultures do not have any respect for spirituality anymore. And it's very sad, but I'm talking directly to those people on the other side of this camera, watching it on their screens. I'm talking to you who has a psychotic mental health disorder, or at least knows someone. I want to get into your brain this concept of shamanism, so you can see that there's another way of approaching the same phenomenon. This change in character, change in behavior that happens drastically, that often has many spiritual or religious overtones to it. There are multiple ways of looking at this. There's also, if we want to step back from the concept of shamanism, there's also the concept of the spiritual awakening or the spiritual emergency. These are all similar things. A shamanic awakening, a spiritual awakening, enlightenment, spiritual emergency. It's all in the same kind of bin. They're all in the same category, and it's all about connecting to something that is beyond what we perceive as this physical world in front of us, where there are atoms bouncing around and electrons bouncing around, and that makes up everything, and that generates consciousness. You know, once you start to do some research and practices to develop your consciousness, you begin to see that whole materialist paradigm is really flawed and primitive. And it's a wonder to me how we can have traditions explaining all of this stuff for over 5,000 years. The ones that I'm talking about from 5,000 years ago are the Upanishads, the beginning of the Vedic tradition, which then turned into Hinduism. But the information's been there for thousands of years, and it's happened across different cultures and different times. But we've lost connection to that today. And the thing is, most of you watching, you were probably brought up in a Western culture, and you might have dabbled in religion a little bit and then possibly rejected it, or took it on as dogma and just believed everything. Both of those are equally bad. There's just so much against us today when it comes to realizing our potential as what you may call a shaman. A modern day shaman, what I would ideally like to see is, in the same way that elderly people get social security checks in the United States, these people with these psychotic mental health disorders immediately get that as soon as they get their first disorder. Bam. You give them funds. You do not ask them to partake in normal economic activity like having a job or going to college immediately. Now, if the person wants to pursue work or higher education or something like that, they can. But this shamanic journey that this person is going to be on is going to be so powerful that it's going to derail their lives, even if they try to medicate it down. And that's what we see today is people are trying to use different medications to control symptoms, and it works to a limited degree. For me personally, I've taken my medications and had 2 manic episodes even while I was compliant with my medication. But the thing is, if this person was given support, and this is also pretty controversial, not placed on these medications, if they were able to go through the experience fully, there is a lot of potential for healing there that most psychologists and psychiatrists wouldn't really believe is possible. And where I get some of the information on that is from the YouTube channel Bipolar or Waking Up. You can search that. It has a lot of good information that relates to a lot of what I've talked about in this video. But if these people were given economic support, if they were given housing and food stamps or something like that, so that they don't have to be forced to work and therefore take medication to be able to work, if they were able to go down the rabbit hole of their own insanity and come out the other side with an abundance of wisdom and spiritual knowledge, if that was the case, and if we valued that spiritual wisdom and knowledge, the world would be a much different place. And before I turn this video off and leave you, I want you to just consider this possibility. Just think about this. Why would shamanism exist in past cultures if it had no value and if it had no functional, benefit for the rest of the culture? I want you to think about that, because I know a lot of people will come into this very skeptical and think, shaman and spiritual world and psychosis and losing your mind. How can any of this be true? How can any of this be real? I want you to ask yourself why shamanism existed in many different cultures if it wasn't real and didn't have value. So anyway, that's all for this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you got something out of it. To the people sitting on the other side of that screen watching this video, if you have a psychotic mental health disorder like bipolar disorder or schizophrenia, I'm not telling you to stop taking your medication. I'm not telling you to do anything of the sort. I actually would highly recommend that you stay on medication solely for the fact that to function in our world the way it is today, that does not support the lifestyle of shamanism, because you don't live in a culture that accepts shamanism and that possibility, it's unwise to go unmedicated. The medication will definitely help you function in an everyday job or doing normal activities like that. So, but anyway, that's it. Post some questions in the comments below if you're interested to see what I have to say about them, and give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe if you liked this video, because there will be more like it to come. Thanks for watching.